From early 1964 to now, the Mustang has gone through many changes. Some positive, like the Shelby GT500, to some not so positive. Basically all the V6 Mustangs. Look, I'm not sorry, it had to be said and I said it. Anyway, do you guys know the history? Well, you will after this video. Let's start in the early days. It all started with the Falcon. Yes, the Falcon. The Mustang was based on the Falcon. In early 1960s, Lee Iacocca, the vice president and general manager of Ford, I don't want to say fantasized because in the real world that's not a good practice, but anyway, with a budget smaller than paperclip, they introduced the first Mustang at the World's Fair on April 17th, 1964. Ford assumed they would sell 100K in the first year. They were wrong. Sales took off for the Ford Mustang. They sold 22,000 in the first day. That, my friends, is the day the pony car was born and a whole new niche of car enthusiasts. The first generation Mustang, which is argued every day as to whether it's the 1964.5 Mustang or the 1965. So, for the sake of this video and time, we're calling it the 1964.5 Mustang. What started with only a coupe and convertibles quickly developed into fastbacks, GT350s, and more. Having more options than a Hot Wheels set, people could build their Mustang to their taste, from anything to a daily to a weekend racer. Total sales between the 64.5 and the 65 Mustang totaled 681,000, just a tad bit more than Ford's assumption. 1966 was a fairly quiet year for the Mustang. Not too many notable changes, but 1967 saw some major changes. Because of the massive engines, the Mustangs got bigger. The big block engines got introduced to the Mustang. 390 cubic inch produced 335 horsepower, and for drag racing, Ford offered a 428 cubic inch Cobra Jet V8, which was rated at 335 horsepower and 440 foot-pounds of torque. 1960-89 got a few upgrades. The Mustang got 3.8 inches longer and 5.5 inches wider, but the 108 wheelbase stayed the same. The 289 went to the trash bin and they changed to a 351 cubic inch with either 250 or 290 horse. Two models were also added, the Mach 1 and the Boss. The Boss made its debut to meet the Trans Am racing production requirements, but the Boss 429 put the 375 horsepower, 429 cubic inch engine to use on the street as required by NASCAR. The 1970 model got restyled to look a bit less mean. Sales dipped in 69 and 70, selling less than 500K in both years. 1971 rolls around and guess what? Mustang got bigger. Also, they added a butt rest rear window, which made them look less like Mustangs of the previous years. Emissions got strict and muscle cars stopped being sought after. In a way, people wanted more economy-friendly cars. The V6 though was enlarged to 250 cubic inch, but starting in 1972, the 429, the last of the big blocks that left the Mustang, leaving the 351 as the top dog engine. In 73, the coupe's weight was heavier by 1,200 pounds than the 65 Stang. Sales nosedived, but Ford had something special up their sleeves. The second gen Mustang. From 74 to 78, let's just say it got smaller. The engines got smaller. Because of the oil embargo, the only thing that got bigger were the sales of the 74 Mustang, which skyrocketed to 386,000, the second gen's best year. It even won Motor Trend's 1974 Car of the Year. Now let's get this Pinto looking generation done. Yes, it's based on the Pinto, I know. Well, a stretch Pinto platform, but on a Pinto nonetheless. The models were either a notchback or hatchback, and the engines were either 140 cubic inch 4-cylinder or a 171 cubic inch V6. But the luxury themed, Ghia topping topped the lineup. Fancy, right? When oil finally started to come, people turned to big cars, in which Ford put a 203 V8, which produced a whopping 140 horsepower, which is also the dawn of the Cobra II and King Cobra, which were eye-catching, but not as fast as Fox's. Speaking of Foxes, Ford came with a new design of the Fox body Mustang, which shared the Fairmont platform. Notchback and hatchback styles were still around. The engines were a 2.3-liter V4 naturally aspirated at 88 horsepower, and the turbocharged pushing out 132. The 2.8-liter V6, 3.3-liter inline 6, and the 4.9 V8 or 5.0 were also options. Although in 80 and 81, Ford replaced the 5.0 with a 4.8 V8 in time for the second oil crisis. For 82, Ford yeeted the trouble-prone turbo when the 5.0 made a return. Unfortunately, cops are now cruising in the 5.0. Real performance breathed fresh air for the Mustang in 83 when an improved 2.3-liter turbo engine returned. The convertible also made its return since its last convertible model in 10 years. Ford replaced the inline for a 3.8 V6, and the V8 was up to $175 in horses. The limited run Mustang SVO, only 9,000 were made between 84 and 86, came with a 175 horsepower 2.3 turbo engine and Kone adjustable shocks. In 85, the engine got up to a 210 horsepower, and in 86, the 4-barrel carb got left in the dust for a fuel injection and 200 horses. 87, the Mustang went aero. Not in the air, but in the redesign, with flush eyes and a new interior. The V6 kissed the dust, leaving two engines / models, Economy Ford Mustang LX and the GT. The GT had lowered body skirts and louvered taillights, which basically the taillights had lines in them. The LX had a leg up on the GT, not because the baseline 88 horsepower 2.3-liter engine that was base in the LX Ford infused, but it was infused with a 5.0 225 horse, which meant the LX was 200 pounds lighter. Now, while sales didn't plummet in 89, they certainly did decline. And with the smell of a new Mustang in the air, nothing really changed between 89 and 93. All I need to say for 93 is SVT Cobra, which had a highly modified 235 horsepower V8, Tokiko shocks and struts, and was less aggressive than the GT. The Racer Cobra R got added chassis support, Edelbrock springs, and adjustable Kone dampers were also added. 5,000 SVT Cobras and only 107 Rs were produced. The Jelly Bean-esque style nodes from the first gen and plenty of prancing horses, the 94 Mustang was what fans were asking for. The Fox platform was still around, but was a bit larger, while the soft-tuned suspension was criticized for its understeering nature. The 4.9 V8 returned with 215 horsepower. The new base engine was a 3.8 V6. The 4.9 was replaced in 96 with a modest 4.6-liter overhead cam V8. It was similar to the 4.9 but had low-end torque. 99 rolls around and the V6 got bumped to 190, while the V8 got bumped to 260 horsepower. The 99 SVT Cobra was the first Stang to have an independent rear suspension. Now, with over 25-year-old Fox platform finally gone, Ford debuted the 2005 Mustang with a squared-off shape that finally paid tribute to the first-gen Stangs. The base V6 produced 210 horsepower, while the 4.6 V8 was now good for the Spartans at 300 horsepower. The reaction was so popular, General Motors, after discontinuing the Camaro in 2002, sought to resurrect it, while Chrysler wanted to bring the Challenger back as well. In 2010, Mustang got a new look to greet the new Camaro. Sequential taillights were a highlight. The only Mustang to have those were the 68 Shelbys. In 2011, new engines were introduced, with the 3.7-liter V6 producing 305 horsepower, and a new 5.0-liter V8 that put out a great 412 horsepower. The 2012 edition Boss 302 upped the power to 444, while the Boss 302 Laguna Seca was a race-ready car. December of 2013 revealed the 2015 model, which celebrated the Mustang's 50th anniversary. Independent rear suspension was fitted standard, and the 300 horsepower V6 and 435 horsepower V8 were joined by a 310 horsepower 2.3-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. The V6 was dropped in 2018, and in 2019, Ford went electric. They introduced the 4-door electric crossover, affectionately known as the Mustang Mach-E. 2021, Mustangs came in a few platforms, from EcoBoost grocery getters to track day racers. The Mach 1 and Shelby GT500 are the track platforms, which have a 480 horsepower V8. Now, Mustangs, also called by their project name T5 in Germany, have been around since 1964 and a half, with no option to slow down. Although adapting to the needs of the people and the environment, who knows what's next for the galloping horses. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. This is Car Concept,